This is a list of undergraduate courses and textbooks I would recommend to prepare for quantitative finance. If you want a more detailed video, wait to the end or check the description of this video for a one on more details and understanding around that and my logic. Also look for another video on graduate text in the description as well. So the first class is going to be Calculus 1. I would recommend Calculus by Stewart. The main chapters I would cover in this should be functions and models, limits and rates of change, derivatives, and applications of differentiation. Calculus 2, continuing on with Stewart's text, integrals, application of integrals, exponential, log, and inverse trig functions, techniques of integration, further applications of integration, differential equations, and parametric equations and polar coordinates. For linear algebra, I would cover matrices and Poisson elimination, vector spaces, orthogonality, determinants, eigenvalues and eigenvectors, positive definite matrices, computations with matrices, linear programming, and game theory. For ODE or ordinary differential equations, I would cover differential equations and models, analytical solutions and approximations, second-order differential equations, Laplace transforms, linear systems, and nonlinear systems. For partial differential equations, I would cover what are partial differential equations, linear and nonlinear waves, Fourier series, separation of variables, finite differences, generalized functions and Green's functions, and Fourier transforms. Next, we have probability and statistics, covering probability, discrete distributions, continuous distributions, bivariate distributions, distributions of functions of random variables, estimation, test of statistical hypotheses, non-parametric methods, and Bayesian methods. For econometrics, we have the nature of econometrics and economic data, the simple regression model, multiple regression analysis estimation, multiple regression analysis inference, multiple regression analysis OLS, asymptotics, multiple regression analysis further issues, multiple regression analysis with qualitative information, heteroscedasticity, and finally, more on specification and data issues. For machine learning, we have introduction, statistical learning, linear regression, classification, resampling methods, linear model selection and regularization, moving beyond linearity, tree-based methods, and support vector machines. For finance classes, you often are going through a memorization process here. So you'll see there are 2 pages for investments. A lot of these chapters are quick and easy, so we tend to cover more chapters here. But for investments, I would cover the investment environment, asset classes and financial instruments, how securities are traded, mutual funds and other investment companies, learning about return and risk from historical record, risk aversion and capital allocation to risky assets, optimal risky portfolios, capital asset pricing model, arbitrage pricing theory and multi-factor models of risk and return, the efficient market hypothesis, bond prices and yields, the term structure and interest rates, options markets, introduction, option valuation, futures markets, futures, swaps, and risk management. And then microeconomics, covering first principles, economic models, trade-offs and trade, supply and demand, consumer and producer surplus, price controls and quotas, meddling with markets, elasticity, decision-making by individuals and firms, externalities, public goods and common resources, the economics of the welfare state, the rational consumer, behind the supply curve, inputs and costs, perfect competition and the supply curve, monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition and product differentiation. And then I would highly recommend taking an introductory course on Python or R. I don't really have a favorite book. I don't have a book that really covers this from a quant model development perspective or validation perspective or research perspective. I find too many books cover too many computer sciencey topics and aren't focused enough. So you're going to have to do some self-learning, maybe look for some recommendations online. And then finally, economic math. Covering quadratic forms and definite matrices, unconstrained optimization, constraint optimization 1, constraint optimization 2, homogeneous and homothetic functions, concave and quasi-concave functions, economic applications, limits and compact sets, calculus of several variables 2. So those are the core courses and the core textbooks I would recommend, as well as the core chapters. Again, you're not going to necessarily cover every chapter at the same amount of depth. This would be, up to you as the reader, the self-learner, and more specifically to your professor through your undergraduate degree. Anyways, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, as there's going to be linked in the description below a few other videos with graduate studies, and as well as electives that I would recommend for undergrad and graduate studies in quantitative finance. And as always, until next time,